Welcome to the podcast She is Fab, where we discuss all things fab, women empowerment, and life coaching. My name is Evelyn, also known as the Fab Chieftess, and I am a mindset transformation coach.
Welcome to another episode of the She is Fab podcast. My name is Evelyn, your host, mindset transformation coach. Today, I am joined by Sarah Mills, who is a self-taught illustrator. Sarah answered the call when she found dog bonds as a job posting. She's now working on several of the custom illustrations for Kickstarter backers, and she's a leader of the project and helps to lift female voices up in the industry. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm glad to have you. So tell us a little bit about you and what you do at Dogs Bonds.
So, like you said, my name is Sarah Mills. I am a freelance illustrator. I've been working since probably as a main thing since 2016. I've been working with Alex and Dogs Bond since 2019 September. So this project has been a long time coming. I enjoy with my work some stuff that's grounded in reality, but has a little bit of twist of unreality to it, either bright colors or fantastic compositions. And so my work with Dogs Bond is basically developing the art direction, doing all of the illustrations, taking the vibes that we want as a team for the player to experience and translating that into a painting. I'm responsible totally for the art development, and it's been a huge, long project, but I'm very proud with what we've come up with.
That's amazing. I mean, you're in a leadership role, right? Basically the creative art director, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Where you're managing and setting everything into motion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I have been in control of small teams in the past, and I wouldn't say I'm in control of a team necessarily in this, but it is definitely, this game, there are three of us mostly on the team. Alex Liu did the game design. Kiki Vorse, my dear friend, did the graphic design, and I've done the illustration. And so the three of us are really able to take full responsibility and total control over those three domains within the project. And it really is like a perfect synthesis of all of our skill sets, but you have to take, like I said, total responsibility for what the game looks like. So that has been, like I said, I've worked with small teams before, but this has been a totally different thing to be, top to bottom and in control of what the illustrations look like.
Mm-hmm. And you can say there's pros and cons, right, to working within a small team versus a larger team. With a larger group, there can be, some loss of translation and communication on how things are to be done. There's less control. With a smaller team, the onus is more on you, but you have more control and visibility.
Exactly. Yeah. It's been great to be able to make those decisions. We kind of try to make them as a team, right? But I'm the art director. I'm the one with final say of what the illustrations look like. And so it's great to be able to, we have that back and forth. I never feel like I get to say, oh, I'm the illustrator. What I say goes. If I present an illustration and anybody says, hey, that's not quite reading, then, I have to take that feedback. And they get to put their, whatever their hang up is in non-artist terms, just as somebody who, like Alex, for example, Kiki is a designer and illustrator, and working in graphic design, she also has that visual mindset, so it's a little easier. But with Alex, with him having no art background whatsoever, he just has to, he tells me, like, this doesn't feel happy enough, or this doesn't feel, this feels too severe or too dramatic, and I have to try and take that and translate it into, what does that mean literally? What do I change in the image, or the color or the composition? And then at the end of the day, I have to give 110% to make sure that it looks right. I have to take full responsibility of the project, because again, it's totally on me.
No pressure, right?
Yeah.
So let's backtrack a little bit, right? We know you're an illustrator and you're the art director, right, for this endeavor, but what is Dogs Bond? Tell us about that.
Dogs Bond is a board game where you take on the role of a rescue dog at a shelter trying to get adopted into one of 6 forever homes. It is an all ages game that plays we've got up to 6 players. It's super cute. It is I really like the balance of it is a fun casual game, but there's just enough strategy in there that you can really get competitive if you have the right group of people around the table. It's, it is a very positive, uplifting kind of game, bright and colorful and fun. And I'm very proud of it. It is Alex's first game design, and it is as a team, our first board game that we've put into motion. We successfully crowdfunded on Kickstarter in September of 2020, and we're hoping, there's all that shipping stuff going on, and we've had some delays, obviously, with the pandemic and Chinese New Year and all this stuff, but we are aiming, fingers crossed, to ship out in May of 2021.
Gotcha. So are you still taking pre-orders or orders in general for the board game?
Yes, we are taking pre-orders. You can go to dogsbondgame.com to find our pre-orders page, or go to the Kickstarter is also linked on there. I don't have that URL memorized, but dogsbondgame.com, you can find our pre-orders.
Awesome. And we're going to put all the details to how to connect with Sarah, but also how to find more about Dogs Bond in the podcast details and YouTube details. So I look forward to that. I have to ask, I love the theme. I have pets myself. I have a dog and a cat, for those that don't know.
Aww.
And when Alex first told me about this, I was like, that sounds amazing. Alex is a pet owner. You want all pets to have a home. And if I were rich, I'd probably have a farm with a bunch of animals, but I'm not.
Yeah, same.
So I love the theme. I love where you guys went with that. What inspired you guys to create a board game on this topic in particular?
Well, so Alex has, he's a dog lover. He unfortunately lives in an apartment where he can't have dogs currently, but he volunteers with his local SPCA. It's just something that he wanted to, it just speaks to the core message. Even everything about the game is built to he likes to, get people off phones and more to interact with one another. He wanted something that could connect with, both the adults, keep the adults entertained, but also get the kids involved, just bringing people together. And the theme of, matching dogs with their adopters, being a dog lover, you don't see a lot of friendly dog games and board games. You see dogs in board games, but they're just like a companion, or there's some games where the dogs are really aggressive and there's nothing really, this is a game where you play as a dog. You put yourself in the dog's mindset, and everything is, it's kind of fun and frenetic, and it feels very, like dogs playing. And it was just, I think being somebody who works in rescue and also a board game lover, saw that something was missing there. We're not thinking about dogs enough. Alex tells a story about, working in rescue. You find adopters that come and say, I want dogs that are totally ready to go. I want them completely trained. I want them to, be just as happy with me taking a hike as they are on the couch. I want a perfect dog. And you have to turn around and say, okay, but what are you going to do to be a good dog owner? How are you going to prove to this dog that you're a good companion? And so I think all of those things percolating. I know Alex had been working on it for a few years before he got artists and designers on board. But I think he just saw a need more from, I think he saw a need for furthering the conversation about rescue in a positive way. And the language that he speaks is board game design in his brain. Mm-hmm. So that's where it came from.
I love that. I love that he, put this together. He brought on a team to bring to light a vision that marries, what he believes in and mm-hmm. does in his personal life, right? Mm-hmm. He's a designer, a game designer. And then on top of that, he volunteers at animal shelters. And then there's the fact that he wants to, like you said, get folks away from being on their screens all the time and interacting with each other authentically. And that's a fun way to do it that also has a positive message.
Yeah, exactly. And I also I'm the world's biggest dog lover. I know that I'm sure there are many, many world's biggest dog lovers. But speaking of dogs, can you hear my dog in the background now? He's pawing around at me. I think he wants some attention. It's funny. I do a fair amount of these videos, and I'm always talking about we really want to uplift dogs and, just the conversation about positive dog ownership. Meanwhile, my dog's in the background, tapping his watch, oh, do you want to be a good dog owner? Why don't you pay attention to me? Anyway.
Well, then I'm just as guilty because obviously with these recordings, I have my pets locked away in the room so they don't interfere as much.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Sometimes I will, turn him away, but he will get really insistent at like knocking on the door and just scratching at it. And
Oh, yeah. Well, no, he's not being a nuisance. I don't
Okay,
hear
great.
him and I don't see him, so it's fine. Don't worry.
Great. Okay.
And for those of you who are listening, if you hear something, deal with it. Okay, these are our pets.
Yeah. A big part of our lives. Yeah. And
Exactly.
I could bring him into more interviews because he actually, one of the breeds, so you play as a dog, we have 8 different dog breeds. One of the breeds is a Boston Terrier, and my dog Leo is a Boston. So I had him, whenever we needed to do a Boston Terrier illustration, I would take him and either we'd go out in the backyard and play a little bit and do a little photo shoot for reference images, or we have one card, I think it's called The Cutest Look, where it's basically the card is of a dog like begging, please, please adopt me. And it's supposed to be like those puppy dog eyes. And so I took poor little Leo and put him in the bathtub, made him think he was going to get a bath, which is not his favorite, and then snapped a picture of the face he was making at me that was like, please, no, please let me out of here. I don't want to take a bath. And I got to use that photo, painted on the card.
That's so creative. I love that. Our pets don't always, sit still or behave for photo shoots.
Yeah.
I can tell you, my girl, I have to give her treats to make up for locking her in the room for these sessions.
Yeah, I bet there's a little apology session. Be like, I'm so sorry. You're so well behaved. Here you go.
So I have to ask, and I probably know the answer to this already, but you saw the posting for the job. Were you inspired to apply because you have a pet and because you love animals as well?
Yeah, so it is, being a freelance artist, I do a lot of, I have clients that I can kind of fall back on, but I do a lot of lead acquisition, just spending my time, trolling job boards and looking at connections and networking. So I apply for a lot of things, but when I saw that somebody, first of all, was a first-time developer, which always, like, I want to help people, I want to, if you're a first-timer, and I can maybe give some advice or pull you in a little bit. That's, my kryptonite. And also they were doing a project about dogs, which, as I mentioned, being the world's biggest dog person, there's no way to say no. And then also that he wanted the project to benefit real rescues and real shelters, which we have partnered with so far in the project. And that was just like, there was no way I couldn't apply. There were some, Alex had a big, long form of questions and, like essay questions for me, but also questions for, that he had, or that questions for me and questions for him in terms of like, here's a problem I'm having, basically, of like, the art direction, how would you go about this and this problem? And it was a very, very involved interview process before I even talked with him. Usually calls out like for first timers are just like, hey, I need an artist. Send me your email. Like, that's kind of it. Nobody has budget, nobody has timeline, nobody's thought about it. But Alex was very clearly like, this is the mission statement. This is the vibe that I want for the game. This is the timeline that I have. And then here's a link to a form to fill out with like, tell me your rates, tell me everything about you, tell me what you think of this problem that I'm having. And I could tell that this wasn't just somebody who was thinking about, maybe I'm going to start doing something. It wasn't somebody just putting speculative questions out there to see if you can get artists on the hook. This was like, I want to go now. Which was, it was very appealing to me. Somebody who wasn't just like, maybe dog game, that would be cute. It was like, no, I have a very specific vision. I love these animals. I want to help and I want to get started. And I was like, yes, totally, totally in on it. So I put my application in and I actually, I think Alex must have gotten a lot of responses because it was about a month after I put my application in, I got an email back that said, thank you so much. We've had so much interest. We're going through them one by one. I promise I'll get back to you. And my first response was like, what did I apply for? Like I sent a lot of these out. I don't exactly remember. But then, seeing the email dogs, I'm like, oh yeah, dog thing. I was so excited. I pulled all of my old, I've, being a dog lover, I've done a lot of dog paintings and pet portraits. I pulled all of those. I put them in an email. I even did a new painting of my dog, just a little study to, just like throw in there as an extra thing. I was, the animal aspect and the charity aspect was definitely very appealing to me.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds amazing because it really shows you that he was serious about it, right? All the effort that he put into drafting, what the vision is about, and then asking you all these questions. There's a purpose in it, right? There's a method to the madness. But additionally, you mentioned that you guys partnered or are partnering with various shelters. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so before we even hit Kickstarter, Alex reached out to hundreds of rescues across the United States and also internationally. We wanted we wanted them to join the pack, basically. We want to speak to not just board gamers, but people who, this is a gateway game. This is not just for somebody who's really entrenched in the board game scene. This is for families and people who are passionate about dogs and rescue dogs. So it was very much hey, we have something that we think that y'all and your people will be interested in, but also we want to give part of our revenue back whenever we sell this, not just through affiliate links, but also through promoting them. We have them on our website. We have them listed. I think there's a section in the rule book with our partner rescues. We gave them graphics to post on social media. We're just trying to be supportive as best we can. And like I said, sales of the game are directly going to, a percentage of sales of the game are directly going to some of these rescues. So, when you pre-order Dogspawn, you are not just getting a game and having a fun time with these, pretend rescue dogs. You're actually, part of your money is going to help real life animals. Which is, it's perfect to me. That's the part that gets me most excited, honestly.
That is so important and speaks to my heart, as an animal owner myself. And I've had all sorts of pets growing up, not just dogs and cats. But you see a lot of animals that are in shelters, right? That they're given up for one reason or another. And you have to wonder, are all these pets getting adopted, or are they essentially being euthanized after a point? And it's so sad to think about that. So for me, what is so great about this is that you guys are tackling a couple of issues here, right? You're tackling the social interaction with individuals. You're tackling animal adoption. And on top of that, you're partnering with shelters, which increases the visibility, increases the motivation for people to continue to adopt and seek out the pets in the shelter.
Yeah. It's, we've had a couple of reactions, before the game was fully fleshed out. Alex and I met, briefly. We started working together in September of 2019, and in December 2019, he actually flew all the way out, from California to North Carolina, where I live. And we got to hang out in board game shops and test the game and talk with other gamers. And that was before we had really any visuals. The game was still on handmade index cards or like cardstock. And whenever we would pitch it without any visuals or colors or energy, you would say making a board game about shelter dogs. And sometimes people would go like, oh, that's sad, thinking about animals in the shelter. And, you can think of it as sad. Of course, you don't want to think that animals don't have homes. But if you shift the focus a little bit to these animals have another chance, you can help them. You can reach out, and this experience of going to the animal shelter does not have to be depressing. It can be a fun, happy place full of animals who are about to meet their forever families. And so the color, the energy, every part of the branding and the marketing, we don't want the first thing people think when they hear about an animal shelter to be like, oh no, homeless animals. We want to think of this is a place where, it's a happy experience. It's a hopeful experience. It's a place where you can feel free to go and get involved, help go and just, a lot of animals just, you can just go and pet them and spend some quality time with them. And, you don't have to do any of the difficult stuff. But if you want to do the difficult stuff, the cleaning and doing all that paperwork, it is not just depressing. It's the reward of getting that animal to go to a forever home is it so far outweighs the difficult parts.
Sarah, you said that so well. For those
Thank
of you
you.
listening or watching, rewind and listen to that again, because Sarah just took what I mentioned about, the sad part about, oh, they're gonna have a home and possible euthanization, and she spun it for the positive. We're all about mindset here. So that is a great skill, Sarah, that you spun that and really showcase the positive aspects of the game and what you guys are putting out there.
Thank you.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. So you, Alex, and apologies, the third designer,
Kiki.
I forgot her
Yeah.
name, Kiki.
Yes.
You guys are essentially an entrepreneurial trio, right? Because you're such a small team. Is this your first segue into such an endeavor, having such a small group where you're really involved in the entrepreneurial aspects from day one?
For me, not necessarily. I've been a freelancer. My whole career has just been remote. That's how it worked. A remote, small team, small businesses. And that's really where I thrive. Because, on a small team, often you don't have the marketing department. You don't have the accounting department. It's you have to share, roles and responsibilities with everybody, and you have to learn a little bit of everything. And I really thrive doing that. I'm so curious and so nosy about how like everything works in a team and in a project. So, my experience has been with thinking about businesses kind of holistically and projects holistically, and making sure, every puzzle piece kind of works to uplift the other parts of the business, and everything works together. And so for Alex is also, he's a freelancer. Day job is nothing like, my freelancing is all creative business as an artist. But for him, it's more like corporate stuff in Silicon Valley. And Kiki has worked this is for sure her first foray into, thinking of a business this way, because she's done corporate design most of her career. So, we have varying levels of experience, but the thing that we all had in common was the perhaps foolhardy lack of fear for getting our hands dirty, running headlong into, not afraid to be bad at new things. Alex says that he, about this project, he wanted to suck at something new, which, I feel that way a lot of the time in my work. Whenever a client asks me like, hey, can you do this thing, this kind of related skill that you don't actually have? I'm like, I could try. And that's it. It felt that way a lot in this project of, having to, there aren't really, we're all sort of the department heads of our own, art, illustration, and design, graphic design, game design, and illustration. But there weren't really any conversations that were cordoned off to, okay, only these people are allowed to participate. We are all using our best judgment and kind of figuring things out as we go, and wearing different hats and giving different perspectives, which, I'm not sure how universal that that experience is with new entrepreneur endeavors, but that's certainly what it was like for us.
Mm-hmm. So what about challenges? Are there any challenges that have come up or that you've experienced that might be different from some of the other roles that you've been in?
Yeah, definitely. This is the smallest team that I've worked on so far. Not by only by 3 people, but that's of course half the size of the team that I've worked on previously. So there was definitely a with the Kickstarter deadline. There's definitely once you set that hard deadline of when you have to go to Kickstarter, and there are only 3 hands. We did have other help. Alex's wife, Amy, who's amazing with doing a lot of, I guess, kind of production design, like overhead, getting things, making sure that we hit deadlines and stuff. We had help in shooting our Kickstarter video. We had help in doing our website. But really, when it comes to getting the meat of stuff done, I had to be on top of the art timeline, and Alex had to be on top of he took the marketing stuff, and Kiki had to be on top of the design deadline, and sometimes there's just not enough hands. Towards the end of the project, I started getting a repetitive stress injury in my hand from just painting so many hours of the day, and so I had I just had to, push the timeline back, and we had to try and deal with that. And we haven't really had any big explosions, anything that just blew the project totally out of the water. But the fact that it is only, being a one-person department and having a hard deadline means that, you just have to punch through it and make it work. And, in the past, previously, I've been at the very least, when you're in a team where everybody can wear each other's hats, if it's not I could trust that somebody can do part of my job if I had to take a sick day, but that really wasn't the case with this project. And that kind of thing it's really engaging to me, but, I'm very glad that we now have the benefit of this Kickstarter for any projects we have moving forward to be able to kind of compensate for some of those crunches. But I mean, Alex and Kiki are incredible. Like we all have the skin in the game. Oh, I have to tell you, I almost forgot one big explosion actually, ended up working out, but we had, like I said, we got some help with the Kickstarter video. We had a team, I'm not sure his last name, but Rob with Spacebar Video. He did a great job with our video. But they booked a time for Alex and some family members and a location to bring all their cameras out there and do the shoot for the video. They booked a day. It was a hard stop. It was not going to work any other way. And we couldn't reschedule because, that was the day it had to happen. We got our prototypes printed, but for some reason they stalled in the mail, and the prototype that was supposed to be on camera, that we're supposed to play with on the day and shoot, was not going to be there until the day after. We only learned about this, we had maybe 36 hours before the shoot was going to happen. And so, Alex, he drove 2 hours, I think, to the center where the prototype was being held, but it was not like a post office. It was like, one of those big factories. So like we couldn't walk in there and get it. We're all on the phone in the middle of the night, like, oh no, is it, Amy was texting us updates and stuff. Wasn't going to be there. So, I had a long road trip the following day. Kiki had something the following day. Amy and Alex and everybody, we all had things to do. But when we found out that we weren't going to have the prototype for the video shoot, we just all were like, we have to make this. There's no way we have nothing to show for it. We have to fabricate our own prototype in like 24 hours. And so, Kiki and I have done conventions and art expos, so we have a little bit of experience fabricating our own, like we'll make stickers and things like that, some paper crafts, getting things printed at the last minute, Staples is super DIY. And so we had Alex buy one of those craft cutters, the Silhouette Cameo, the machines, and make, like, our game has hundreds of components. And so Kiki and I, we were up until like 3 or 4 in the morning, like formatting all the stuff to get sent to him to be printed and to be cut. And like, it was just the energy that we all had of like, there was a little bit of despair when we realized like, we've been working so hard to get this prototype and get this video scheduled, and we thought it was going to look amazing. We're not going to get that anymore. But just a second, just a few moments before all of us snapped into like, okay, time to do the work, time to get in gear. We're going to make something, we're going to do our best. It's going to be what it is, and that was just like something that could have been so disastrous, turned actually into, we as a team just said, we're going to get it done. We don't accept that, we're not just going to go, I don't know, we can't do the shoot tomorrow. Sorry. We have to have something. But so the good news, Alex finished, like I said, I had that road trip the previous or prior, up until like 4 a.m. I got up like 9 a.m. and, started driving. All day long, Alex was making this prototype. I was on the phone with him, telling him how to work the machine, all that stuff. And after he finished the prototype, very end of the day, gets a knock on his door. It's the post office. The mailman's here. Box is here. We got it. The prototype is here. Everybody, like the professionally done one that looks so much better than our DIY one is there. And so, Alex, I mean, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I think I did both. And, like I said, solid 36 hours of panicking and working so hard and, putting in such great effort. And then box just shows up. Earlier than any of the estimates said it would. He was on the phone with the post office, like trying to figure it out. Nobody knew it was going to arrive, but there it is. So, our shoot turned out great. You can actually see a couple of the DIY components that he made in the video, which I'm happy with. They don't look identical, but I'm like, no, we worked so hard to make those DIY components. They're going to be in the video. But yeah, it was just
they're good enough.
Yeah. They're like, I don't care what they look like. I want to be able to point at that and see, look, that's what we did. But yeah, I knew the team was something special, but that moment of everything has gone wrong and the Kickstarter video was so important. We thought it was going to be horrible because you wouldn't have the real thing. But that moment of every single one of us had full right to, throw a tantrum or to say, no, it's 2 a.m. I can't do this. I have a thing to do tomorrow. And nobody did. We were all so in sync with no, we have work to do. We're going to get the work done. And that was it.
That is a key takeaway there, right? That showed just how resilient and imaginative you guys all were to come together at the last minute to develop another prototype. Yeah. I mean, even though you knew it might not look like the professional, fancy, finished product, you still did your best to come up with something that you could use in this shoot that you cannot reschedule. It had to happen. And you guys all worked together cohesively through the night to make that happen. That is a big indicator of a great team dynamic and resiliency. Not to mention the positivity there. You said a word, I can't. You were like, we couldn't say, I can't. You made it happen. You went to how can we make it happen? And that is a great determinant for your success.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. It did feel kind of like a cosmic reward when the real prototype showed up on his doorstep. It was like I said, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. And again, I think maybe anybody more negative team member might be like, we just did all of this for nothing. It was like, I can't speak for Alex and Kiki, but, I feel, I'm proud of that work that we did, even though, it was not, it was the project in one frame of mind, it was the project going horribly wrong. I still can feel proud of what we all did and what we came together to do. And, very grateful that prototype did come through.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it happens that way, right? You plan for the worst and you do what you can do, and then things happen to work out. But you know what? You can't depend on luck or what ifs. You have to do what you have to do to make sure that the outcome you want is the outcome that you get. So either way, you guys experienced a positive out of that, right? Your team dynamic was tested. Your resiliency was tested. Operating under pressure, because I can imagine having to work through the night to meet a deadline, the frustration you can experience. Some folks don't work that well under pressure. I'm not sure if, what your thoughts are on that, but to have 3 individuals having to scramble last minute like that, yes, anyone could have thrown in the towel.
Yeah. And I think Alex, even though this is Alex's his baby, it's his, brainchild and it's his project, all of us do feel a real ownership of the project in a way. Like I said, it's the art and illustration, that's my department, that's my responsibility. I get to say that's my baby too. And Kiki is the same way with the design. And so I think we were all grateful to one another for having that same, bringing that same amount of each other into it, of Alex is like, y'all could have thrown in the towel, and I'm like, no, I couldn't. I couldn't have. I've worked so hard, and they've worked so hard too. It's not just if I were to step away and throw in the towel. I wouldn't begrudge anybody. Working through the night, it's pushing your body. That's I wouldn't begrudge anybody making that decision to, just let it be what it was. But for me personally, I had already put in so much work into making it look good. I felt personal responsibility for it. And I felt responsibility to do what I could for Alex and for Kiki's work, to honor what they've brought to the project as well. It's not just, even though I do feel ownership of it, it's not just my thing either. It's their thing too. And they're my friends and I want to help support them and uplift their work. So yeah, I felt in a way, I feel like I am thankful for them not, taking that positive attitude and not taking it negatively. But I also feel like I didn't have a choice, and I'm sure they feel the same way of like, maybe you, for other people it would be a choice, but for me, it's not, you stay positive, you get the work done.
Well, tell Alex and Kiki I said that is an amazing story. You guys did a great job coming together, and applause for the team dynamic.
For Kiki and Alex, yes.
That story is inspirational. Guys, I'm a mindset coach. So I'm all about positivity, reframing the negative. So I feel like this conversation is really just feeding my soul.
Yay!
Not to mention, it's about dogs, right? It's about creating a game that is going to tackle several things. One of them being taking a dog from a shelter to their forever home. What more positivity, what more positive message could you ask for?
Yeah.
So speaking on the team dynamics, right? Obviously, from what I hear, it sounds like you guys are able to work cohesively even under immense pressure and, deadlines, last minute deadlines. Have there been any challenges? So I have an artistic background as well, Sarah. I actually have a bachelor's in media arts and animation.
Oh, amazing.
Surprising, right? And as I recall, when I was in the industry, it was predominantly male, and sometimes the dynamics could be a little bit difficult. Right now, you're working in a team of 3, right, with Alex and Kiki. So I'm curious as to what your experience has been with the dynamic in the team, as well as, with other roles that you have had.
So Alex is, I promise I'm not just like gassing him up because I know he's going to listen to the interview. He's, one of my favorite clients by far. He's been very great about being sensitive to, uplifting our voices as women and making sure that, we choose the people that we work with carefully. Because you can't trust everybody to be cool about, especially in the board game space, about there being women there. That's just how it is. And so he's been great for, listening to our feedback. If we say maybe this term is not the best to use, or maybe this board game person seems like he's maybe a little bit sexist, so you want to go and take that one. He's been great, and our dynamic has been very like I said, we're all owners of our own, we're all department heads, and so I have not felt in any way like I'm having to fight for the right to be there. Not so with the larger board game space. I am not a veteran board gamer. I was not really, I was only minorly aware of the space before I started on the project back in 2019. And so, dipping my toe into the board gamer culture, you can definitely tell that women are there sort of, not to get too depressing about it, but women are there sort of provisionally almost. Like you have to earn your right to be in the conversation, or you have to prove your expertise. I have, I don't know if I'm lucky for this experience, but, I've been in conversations with other, men, specifically playtesters, where they kind of talk over you. They kind of pretend they can't hear you talking. They don't give you space in the conversation, and you really have to elbow your way in, until I drop my portfolio and they see my relative expertise as, an artist. Then they're interested in what you have to say. And so it is something that it's kind of a current you're always swimming against. But having, Alex and Kiki, obviously, Kiki understanding, having people that will at least back me up and say, like, yeah, you're not crazy. Those guys are being jerks. Or having people that will just have your back, and let you know that you're not alone. And like I said, you're not crazy, makes all the difference in the world. Because I feel like I can tell that this potentially is optimistic, but I can tell that that kind of mindset is starting to shrink a little bit. It's starting to go away. The more you shine a light on it, the more people will go ahead and say, like, okay, this is a space where we stand up for women. If we hear somebody talking over them, that's not going to fly. And having backup is so important in that. Yeah.
I'm so glad that you feel supported in your current environment and that you have had support in other periods as well. For the men who are listening, I know that this is mostly for women out there. That's my audience. But for those of you males who are out there listening, please support your women, support your sisters, your mothers, your aunts, just any female energy around you. Make sure you support them, especially if you want to see the betterment, right? We want to make sure that women have a space to talk, that they feel safe in being able to talk. And your contribution in that is most appreciated and needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it definitely, when I meet men who very specifically, in the board game space, it's a lot of, at least where I'm operating anyway, it's a lot of first timers, a lot of, DIY guys who, they're not necessarily used to working in big teams, or they're not being the most professional all the time, or thinking about, they're just hanging out doing their thing. And so you do come across a lot of people who kind of speak without thinking. And there's a lot of sexist language baked into, society or ideas. And the best, well, I guess the best possible thing would be, that none of us have to encounter sexism whatsoever. But after that, like, it's my favorite thing when I encounter someone who maybe does or says something sexist and takes, like, if I say something to correct, quote unquote, or to maybe be like, maybe don't say that as much. If somebody is totally chill and like, oh, sorry, like, my bad. And that's it. And it's not a big deal. And they don't make it seem like they're being attacked, or, if somebody who can just play it off, like they just made a mistake, like, all people do, that is like, that changes everything. Now I'm on that person's side because, like, I know that sexism is not something that they're holding on to. They're like, how dare you take away that thing that I just said? It's something they're willing to change, and they're not going to freak out, and they're totally cool. And next time, if they do say something sexist, I'm not as upset by it because I know that that's not in their heart. I know that that's not something they're trying to say to hurt. It's just that they're making a mistake, and that's all it is. And it's not a nefarious plot to, I don't want girls in my board game space, So yeah, that's, like, when an easy thing to do is just like, just let's just talk about it. Just be cool. And, now I'm your best friend. Now I am so on your side. And now I'm even more invested in helping continue to make the space that we're in, like, positive and safe and fun.
Mm-hmm. That's a great approach to take, and great advice for the audience, right? We're all human. We all make mistakes. We can sometimes say something and the intent in which we're saying it doesn't translate. So make sure that you have these conversations to address anything that comes up, which may make you uncomfortable, or, to her point, as a woman, a guy might say something sexist. Have that conversation and try to understand if they're actually being sexist or if it was just a mistake on their end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Sarah, it has been great talking to you and learning more about the Dogs Bond game and the positive cause behind it. Before I let you go, though, how can folks connect with you and find out more about the game?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. You can find me at sarahmillsart.com, SARAH mills.com, or Sarah Mills Art rather. All of my social media is there. I'm at Sarah Mills Art on Twitter. You can find all the information about the game at dogsbondgame.com. Also, Dogs Bond Game for all socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're all over the place. And again, pre-order information for Dogs Bond Game at dogsbondgame.com. Thank
you so much for sharing that, for sharing your story and your experience. and coming on this platform to talk about, again, a game that, one, is super cute. If you guys haven't, heard about it, go to the site. It's super cute. Again,
Thank you.
Positive Cause, it's a game where you interact as a dog to get adopted to your forever home. And they're partnering with shelters where part of the proceeds will go to those shelters. So, come on, guys. Again, how much more positivity do you need? So, Sarah, I want to thank you again for coming on and sharing all of this with us and imparting, your words of wisdom. Last thoughts before I let you go.
I just thank you so much for having me. This has been such a great, uplifting conversation.
You are welcome. I enjoyed the conversation as well, and I'm so excited to see how you continue to develop. One of the things that I do, as part of my podcast, I really try to support my fellow ladies. So I will be following your journey. I will connect with you on social media. And like I said, tell Alex and Kiki, one, I said hi, but also I'm so glad that they have such a positive environment that you're a part of, and also a positive message that they're putting out into the world.
Awesome. Yeah, I will do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, guys. So as I always say, preparation, accountability, execution, and resolve are keys to your success. Until next time.